Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the Crossed Over Celebrity channel. My name is Tina, and I am a soul alignment coach, which means I help people expand their definition of who they think they are so that they can come into alignment with their soul's purpose and their journey here. So I hope everybody is doing well, considering a lot that is going on in the world right now. So I wanted to bring through somebody who had gained a lot of wonderful knowledge here on his journey. George Harrison is the celebrity that I'm teaming up with today to help us talk about consciousness, what that really means, and how we can view the world and help the world by doing our inner work that I talk a lot about here on this channel. But we're going through difficult and we're always going through these periods of challenge. It depends on where you are in the world, and we're seeing a lot of changes, a lot of this duality playing out with the warring that's going on. I mean, there's been warring going on all over the world. We just seem to be, as we get more connected in our global world through all of this wonderful technology, it gives us a broader way to look at things, not so much to desensitize or to, to not take into account how serious some of this stuff is for the people currently experiencing it, but we can learn by watching and communicating with those that are going through these experiences. And of course, we can offer our help, our compassion, our empathy. But we want to really focus on, again, if we want to change what's going on in the outside world, it's really important that we are all doing our inner work. And George was very wise man. He gained a lot of great wisdom. He remembered a lot of great wisdom through his other lives, things that he experienced. So we want to talk a little bit about that and share with you some of the messages that he brought through. Now, he is an extremely intense personality. When he was here, that is shown in his contract. George Harrison was a member of the Beatles. After they broke up, he did his own solo career. He did movies. There was many things that he accomplished. The Beatles being a catalyst for a lot of his growth here in his life. So, of course, he credits a lot of them. Those were his soul family, his brothers, and he was able to learn so much from them. So without further ado, I would like to share George's soul contract, because that's what we do here is we go through these wonderful soul contracts that the celebrity who's now on the other side is helping me to show you what these contracts meant for them, what they learned as they evolved through their lifetime, and how we can benefit, the messages that they want to share with us, and helping us to kind of bridge the gap in our own lives. And because we can learn a lot from each other, we're all connected. George really was a big, if you listen to, he didn't do a lot of interviews and things like that, but what you can find out there is worth listening to, because he speaks from a very conscious level. He was digging into a lot of that while he was here, and that is very much part of who he was. And but like I said, he was a very super intense man in this. I'm going to annotate my mouse here so you can see where I'm at when I'm bumbling around the charts here as we get going. And so let's talk first about the soul destiny piece. So he had this beautiful 16-7 in his soul destiny. And so the soul destiny is an accumulation of all of the numbers. And if you hear me talk about the charts, I always put a little short introductory video in the description box below if you want to know how I pull the charts together, the history behind the soul contract, how that came into being, another wonderful tool for us to use on our journey here, and learning more about ourselves and where we're going. So in our and in the Earth School, as I like to call it here, is Matt Kahn. He's one of my favorite spiritual teachers, and he talks a lot about how the Earth is the gangsta planet. Nothing's easy here, not even if you were a Beatles. So just because people have, looks like from the outside, gain a lot of money and notoriety and all of this fame and what we'd consider fortune, it's really just the superficial kind of gets them to a point in their life where they realize that all of that, wanting those things, not that that is bad, but that it's really just the start of learning the lessons here. So he had this beautiful 16-7 in his soul destiny. And so this was all about him, bringing people together in groups and sharing these creative ideas. And that was through his music, obviously, through the Beatles and their music, and then through his he was involved in the Traveling Wilburys. He was involved in some movies and film, and wrote books. This book here, I Me Mine, was his autobiography that he wrote, which really didn't showcase the Beatles. It really showcased him after the Beatles and the things that he loved. I have not read this, but so I'm just gathering my information as I am getting it through him and through the few things I know about him already, just from him being a celebrity and some of the interviews I watched, just getting a little bit of his energy coming through. He is a very authentic person. So that was him. Also part of his destiny here wasn't just about bringing people together to share these wonderful ideas and creative energies, and it was about him also learning that he could learn from others but still maintain his own individuality. And I think he did a really good job of that, not being like anyone else. That's really the 16-7. I talk about that. I think David Bowie, that reminds me of his chart. He was this very authentic. I think he had 16-7 in his karma. So when you have these numbers in your karma, they're meant for you to really attain, everything is duality, light, dark, black and white. And so with these numbers, they also have these positive vibrations and energies that they contain, and also the negative part. So with the 16-7, he would have to be, again, it was all about him being true to who he was and what he wanted, and learning to express himself and add his most authenticity and be able to speak his truth from the heart. And I think you could see at some of his interviews he didn't like to talk a lot publicly, but when he did, you really got this really sense of who he was as a deep soul. And so I think he did a fabulous job with that soul destiny. Not all of us really are able to work through our numbers and attain each incarnation. And so we pick different things to come back, when we reincarnate back in, to work on and to learn through, to open up our consciousness and to grow. So again, let's talk about him, this intensity that I'm talking about that he brings. I mean, look at his face, and just anytime you watch him, he does have this great intense energy, and that is really coming from this 14-5 in his karma. And this 14-5 is really tied into what we call the reflective being. It's all about him learning to speak his truth. It's all about him learning through others, because when we come incarnating here, we kind of have this veil put over us. I call it, it's kind of a little bit of the game here. You don't all of our knowledge from our previous lives are there. We may be not very conscious of it. It's all about us learning how to access that in this life and opening up to another level of consciousness. So we don't come in knowing a lot of that. It's kind of blocked from us. And so we come through this growth process again from scratch. And with these numbers, they attract to us certain experiences. And so for him, it was really, he was a very intense person, and he would draw to him very intense relationships. And we saw some of that playing out in his relationship with his first marriage with Patty Boyd, and some of the relationships that he had with even his bandmates and things. That he had these very, very intensity about them. And so he had to be very careful with not getting burnt out emotionally because of the intense nature of this reflected being, which is all about him coming. And the really positive side about this, because I said, when you have something in karma, it's really meant for you to come into its fullest positive form. And so the 14-5 is really about him coming into these higher levels of consciousness by learning through others. And I thought he did, a wonderful job of that. He learned a lot from John Lennon and Paul McCartney and kind of their views. And he really was drawn to a lot of mysticism and Hinduism and the Eastern culture. So like Alan Watts, who was this big philosopher, and I did a reading on him, he also was merging those, some of that Western idealism with the Hindu idealism, which is, I love that, we're starting to bring this all, it takes years and years, but where we're at now is there's another rise in consciousness that's going on, and we're bringing all of these ideas together. So again, with him having this 14-5, it would make him very psychic, although he may not have picked up on that, because again, having it in karma, you can be blocked from seeing that about yourself. And also the issue with the 5s is you really have to be careful about taking on, being very negative in your expression and taking on others' negativities. That makes you very sensitive to other energies. So he would have to be conscious of that. And he also, with psychic attacks and things like that, clearing his energy would be something that would be highly recommended. And he did stumble upon meditation. Gardening was something in this book he talks a lot about. He was becoming this master gardener. And all of that is really tied into that reflected being and learning how to clear and clean using the earth to ground the energies. Now, this physical chart and then our spiritual side of the chart, as we get older, they start to intermingle. So we're going to go right to, physically having this intensity. He could be very ungrounded early in his younger years, not making maybe the best decisions or whatever. But with 8s and his talent, that gave him a great ability to ground, because they are the best grounding energies that we can have. And so he would have, from this, be able to really emotionally really channel his emotions, learn how to bring the emotions through the body and ground them, because that's how you want to be able to communicate and to grow and to bring in the right types of energies. You want to be able to ground that energy, because if you're not grounded, you end up picking up all of this distortion from the ethers, because these are very etheric energies, very intangible energies. And so this was a great talent for him to have. It's all about emotionally connecting with others. And of course, the 16-7, the 7 in that 16 gives him this level of magnetism where people are drawn to him. So he also, in his goals, his physical goals here, he has this beautiful 13-4 energy. His mother, people with 13-4s, we always look at their relationship with their mother, and it sounded like George had a very positive mothering experience, and the fact that she was really just wanted her children to be happy, and she wasn't listened to a lot of Indian music, and very while George was in the womb, which was very good for his energy and the type of soul contract that he has. So he was blessed with having this type of a beautiful, because a 13-4 is tied to the divine feminine, and you can have kind of two different experiences here. You can either have this very negative mother wounded experience, or you can have the opposite, which I feel George was more aligned with having somebody who kind of showed him what being in a divine feminine is all about. And so of course we have that masculine and feminine side. And so the 8s are a very paternal energy, and then he's got in his goals this very feminine energy. And the more he can tap into that, the more that will benefit him, because these are where you get your creativity is from the feminine side. And when you manifest it into the reality, that comes from the masculine side, that's the action and the will. And so he had this great balance of numbers here that, the negative side here was this 8s bringing a lot of that duality and polarity to him, this, light or dark, maybe having commitment issues where he would struggle with that. But it gave him this ability kind of to have that vagabondness about him. So he could go to other countries and experience other things. Some of these other numbers play heavily into that. But the 8s are always, great for connecting and, especially from learning how to manage your emotions too. So the 13-4 again was this, it's your physical goals. So what did that mean for George? It meant that he was all about living an ideal, helping needy people, which he did. So he would have been, whether he was conscious or unconscious of it, he would be pushed in this lifetime to try to help people at some level. He did it at more of a global level. Not all of us do things at a global level. It might be, but we're all connected. It doesn't mean that we have to do things at a big level like he was doing. It can be helping in your community, or, helping your neighbor in need. So the 13-4 really drives us for that, and is such great creativity here, radiation of spirit. I think he was very, depending on where he was or the different pictures, or sometimes you could see his real beautiful spirit. And there are other times I could see more when he was in this more of in his mind, negative, those negative energies. And really, I could see those in his pictures, because again, like I told you, that 14-5 is very intense, and it can really bring that through. So he has to be very cognizant about his mind. It's very important, especially because his other karmic aspect is this 20-2, which 20-2 can be a wonderful number. It's about flexibility and movement. But in its karmic aspect, it can give you this, what we call war to peace, and it can create a lot of inner conflict, and it can have you kind of doing one thing and being another type of dynamic. And he said that kind of played out for him in his relationships with this intensity reflective being. And then he didn't realize he was creating all of this conflict. And he talks about understanding what karma is, and it's about cause and effect. So it's about your behavior. So we have to 100% own whatever happens to us, regardless of the fact he had somebody who broke into his house, stabbed him 40 times. Here we got the 4s here, right? And that was a really devastating experience for him, obviously. And so people with 20-2s, especially because he has it in his spiritual goals as well. And to me, this was a spiritual thing going on for him. And trust me, it's nothing to be afraid of. it's about, again, these experiences are about to learn and to grow and to understand what we're doing to create them in our lives. So he did have a lot of conflict going on. And so, you know, people with 20-2s have to be very conscious of what they're manifesting and really have to understand that connection to what we're thinking and how that is playing out, because you'll draw those experiences to yourself unknowingly, especially with this intense psychic stuff, negative going on with this 14-4. And so that kind of compounded that for him, and drawing somebody who was really mentally unstable and very negative. So again, it's all about clearing energy, you know, knowing what spiritual protection is all about. And so the great thing about the 20-2 is this is what really drove George to also seek new experiences. This was something why he was never able to just sit back and rest or play the same old thing. He was always seeking new experiences. He always needed new movement and new ideas and new creations, especially with this maternal creative energy here. The 4s are all about trusting in the flow of life. So again, this was a great talent for him, because again, the 22 is all about this inner conflict and being very careful about how you're living your life and the thoughts that you are projecting and this type of separateness that we're creating and not being conscious of knowing that we're doing it. So, and remember, by the time he was 20, he was this great superstar. He had acquired everything most people, you know, could only imagine of acquiring. And now he's like, now what? This is when he really started, you know, and he was saying really only the money and stuff gave him this ability to be able to, you know, to travel and to do those things and to get this knowledge. But that's really the only benefit of it. That wasn't what buys happiness or fulfillment. And especially for somebody with a 20-2, fulfillment is at a much deeper level. And it's really about him realizing that superficiality of all of that, you know, being married to Patty Boyd, a model, and how to really connect with people on an emotional level, and sharing these ideas and talking about consciousness and how to make a better world. And so he did start to, you can see in the way he was communicating, he understood how he was learning about the mind and how this positivity was really important, because as I had said about Mother Teresa, she said, I will never protest war, but I will march for peace. So it's about focusing on the positive. So for doctors who are so caught up in trying to cure disease and focusing on the disease, and he's saying if they would focus more on teaching people about health and what optimal health is and how we can be the most healthy, how that is the balance that we need. And Marianne Williamson, who ran for president and was one of these very high, and George talked about how, you know, as we raise in levels of consciousness, we'll get higher consciousness people as our leaders. Your leader is just a reflection of where you are at in the consciousness journey with the people that, you know, are, you know, the collective consciousness. So, and as we each start doing our own work and start focusing on this positivity, then you're going to see this consciousness rise, and it'll seem like it swings back and forth, but it's always evolving, and it is always actually changing and raising for the better. So he just wants to really push on that. And Marianne Williamson, like I was talking about, she says, what we need to have a Department of Peace rather than a Department of War, because what you focus on is what, by law of attraction, you are increasing. And when I want to talk about this attack that happened to him and how after the death of John Lennon, that really messed with him, with his thoughts and his mind about the fact that John was attacked, and this was something that it was on his mind, and that was part of this manifestation of, and this fear, again, focusing on that fears, and that, again, he takes full, even though you could consider him very much a victim, he does not look at that at all. This was an opportunity for him to go deeper in his consciousness level, which he did. It was another catalyst for him to even go a little bit deeper into himself. And so having that 22, again, in his spiritual goals is all about, again, this about never being happy with what is. It's about wanting to learn more and more. And so he got deeper and deeper into the learning about consciousness and wanting to grow better as a person. And so, and he really came upon transcendental meditation, which was critically important for this 14-5 on the karmic side here, so that he could get a handle of his mind, because he was starting to really learn that these are some of the things that came through, you know, that he's like, why aren't people asking more questions, you know, more of the deeper questions, you know, because he believed knock on the door and it will open, but you have to knock on the door. And this comes from his fours and trusting in the flow of abundance and being okay with trying something, whether it fails or not, and just trusting that what happens. But he says the issue is there's always this tidal wave of bullshit, excuse my French, that is always coming at us. And that is true, because that you're always subjected to the collective consciousness. And so those are all those negative thought forms and things, and not to be over-identified, because being the observer of your mind, he wants you is to know what you are attracting to your mind. It's not over identifying that your thoughts are you. That's not what that is about. It's knowing so you can figure out where you're at a vibrational level, because what you attract to you is where you're at. So again, he understands that we're always working through these light, dark, this polarity here. And he did have an experience with acid, and I'm not condoning people to go out and do acid, but it was, he did have an experience, because the 14-5s, again, can reach these higher levels of consciousness that maybe somebody who doesn't have that in their chart may be limited in some way. Doesn't mean that they can't become conscious, but he was able to opened his mind, and he used some psychedelic drugs. And I believe that we can, you know, be careful of the spiritual bypassing I talk about, by using them as a crutch to get to these levels, because it can be in a little bit of an illusion. But he did have some remembrances when he did this. It opened up his mind, and all of a sudden he knew things that he couldn't remember knowing. And so then this is what kind of opened him. Oh, there's more going on here than what meets the eye. So again, there's this search for a higher level of consciousness, and knowing that we've had many lives, many experiences, and we can draw off of those. And there are many ways. Meditation is the most honored, and that I would recommend for people to start to learn about the mind, and how you can create your space, and learn how to manage those your thoughts, because that's the critical piece here, because that drives your vibration, and then it drives these numbers as to what you attract into your life. So the more conscious you can be, it's not about controlling your life, it's trusting in what happens is meant to happen, and how we react to it and how we heal from it is really the crutch of that. So he had a lot of confusion. He talks about how confused he was. That's from this 22. It creates confusion in order to seek out clarity, right? Confusion, clarity. So, he just wanted to know what happens when you die. That's why he wrote, the song, My Sweet Lord. It's, he can't wait to meet you. I can't wait to know who you are. And he really wrote it with the Ascended Master Krishna in mind. And he was writing it because he didn't believe in this separateness that even in India and some of these other places that they believed in, well, my religion's the right religion. And it's really about this unity consciousness and starting to see the similarities in everything rather than the differences. And he was, and he said that meditation was to turn off your mind and float downstream. That's the key. Abraham Hicks talks about that all the time in her Law of Attraction videos, about quit paddling upstream, quit going against the current. And this is what these 4s and talents are all about. Trusting in the flow of the universe, staying at that high vibrational, in that high vibrational place, and learning how to manage your emotions so that you know how to get back there. And those are things that I do through my own, business. The alignment keys is how do we, because we always, getting out of alignment is part of these lessons. And so the whole purpose is to learn how do we get back into alignment again so that we can continue on, and then we'll get knocked out again, and then we can have this again, another review of what's going on and bring it back into alignment. So that's all meant. We're not, and then we get better and better at it as we get older, and it's easier and easier, and things should become easier and easier for us. And so it's all about, for him, he talked about how to find peace of mind and true bliss. So, and he was a big believer that money didn't do that. And that's, again, money is just a form of energy. I don't want to poke on anyone's beliefs about money, because there's a lot of negative beliefs about money that, there's this illusion that, money is bad and it creates evil. And that's not the case. It's the intention behind any energy that creates the negative or the positive, or what we would consider negative or positive. But you can't have one without the other. So always keep that in mind. And so he knew, and he said, this is beyond thought. And so those were the big pieces that he wanted to bring through. He wrote this song called Within You, Without You. And so I want to read the lyrics, because this is what we're talking about with this inner conflict and what we call the war to peace number. And so this is something about all of us looking within. And so the lyrics of Within, Without You that he wrote is, it goes, we were talking about the space between us all, and the people who hide themselves behind a wall of illusion never glimpse the truth. Then it's far too late when they pass away. When we're talking about the love we could all share, when we find it, try our best to hold it there with our love. With our love, we could save the world if they only knew. Try to realize it's all within yourself. No one else can make you change. And to see you're really only very small, and life flows on within you and without you. How we're big and small at the same time. And we're talking about the love that's gone so cold, and the people who gain the world and lose their soul. They don't know, they can't see. Are you one of them? When you see beyond yourself, then you may find peace of mind is waiting there. And the time will come when you see we're all one, and life flows on without you, on within you and without you. And I just love that, because it really talks about what each of us can do about finding that inner peace. And it's with every peace in the world is all within us. And so I highly advise, if you're interested in Cash Peters has a channel called Soul Crossings, and he did George Harrison's transition pictures, and they're very, very interesting. And I would highly recommend that you watch them if you love George and what he represents. So we're going to pick a few oracle cards because I'd like to bring in a few more messages from George, because he was really onto something here. And he's got me going here to the Keepers of the Light Oracle. I think a lot about that song too. Oh, well, of course. We got 2 cards came out, and you're going to laugh because I'm going to stop sharing my screen here for a second. Now that we're kind of done with the looking at the soul contract, because I want you to see this card. Krishna comes right out. First card, can't make it up. He loved Krishna. He was, it's in his song, My Sweet Lord. And Krishna is all about devotion. Trust your spiritual guidance. Your commitment has been recognized. You are loved unconditionally. Oh, how beautiful is that? And then the other card that popped out was Archangel Michael. So he also, again, that very divine masculine side, trusting heaven, and that's all about the 4s in his chart. You are safe. Angels stand close. Surrender your concerns and allow a miracle to occur. And so whatever is going on in the world, we can stand in our own inner peace. Everyone has free will. We don't have any power over anyone else, but we can create a lot of change by creating the right positive energy for people to gain the strength that they need to do the right things. And so I've been involved in a lot of meditations for Ukraine, also aligning with the Russian people about taking their power back and standing in their truth. And because it's all about all of us, and finding love and compassion and empathy, even in the darkest characters, because if you can think of it as God dressed up in all of these characters, even in their most distressing guise, like Putin, or on the street, a homeless person, it's up to us to have empathy and compassion for their journey and their charts and what they, because people who are doing things from the self-centered, instead of being centered in self, from a self-centered perspective, are so far away from the truth of who they really are. And so it's really up to us as a unity. We can help to effect change through those things. So, that was just an absolute, I couldn't have asked for anything better to validate George's presence and to have Krishna show up. So I am so excited about that. So we're going to the Sacred Destiny deck. George, what would you please? Oop, Wonders comes out. We got this beautiful amethyst crystal, and look how it's going through this dark cloud. Again, that's kind of that image I was trying to convey about all of us. I love when a community of us get together and we meditate and we stand in our light, and then we visualize where we want that light to be, whether it's in the Ukraine or Russia or Syria or the Palestinian areas or Afghanistan. I mean, there's so many that we can affect change. I do want to read Wonders. I love that purple energy too, which purple, you can see that's coming through in the Krishna card with devotion, and it's Archangel Michael's. And then again, I talked about colors is, about that high level of consciousness is all about that purple, violet, purple rain, like with Prince. So Quartz Crystal So natural rock crystals, clear amethyst, citrine, rose, and smoky, were all revered in ancient times. The Aborigines of Australia called it maban, which was the material through which their shamans and elders gained their magical powers. The Egyptians believed quartz had mystical healing abilities and would bury their dead with a piece of crystal on their forehead. The Greeks and Romans believed crystals were solid ice that had been formed by the gods and thus had mystical powers. Even to present day, people believe that crystals can help manifest their intentions. Perhaps that is because of the piezoelectric qualities of quartz, the reason why quartz can amplify radio signals. There are some places in the world where it's not uncommon to find crystals on the surface of the land. These are especially powerful because they have found you in their natural settings. And I can hear one of my alarms going off. I'm going to just, very interesting that went off, but we're going to pick another card from the Wisdom of the Oracles. And in his karma, he had number 5, and that is coming through, and it's called orphaned. So this reminds me a little bit of these warring about, leaving orphans and being up on the rock and seeing this barren landscape. So let's go to it's on page 16, which 16 was his soul destiny. I did have to go stop that alarm. I could hear it. So, and it was exactly at 5 o'clock the alarm went off, which is, again, another symbolism. So, okay, we've got orphaned, a sense of loss, an identity crisis, recognizing that you don't fit in, the need to belong, uncertainty about your place. So we were all meant to have connections with other people, with our families, society, and the larger culture. No man is an island, and it's important to recognize when being a part of, rather than separate from, is essential to your well-being. The issue at hand is the need to find where you fit. Be true to your core truths and values. Perhaps you no longer identify with a group or community the way you did before and need to find a new situation. You might be feeling a deep sense of loss or confusion. And he talks about that too, where he was leaving the Beatles to go out because it wasn't serving him anymore. He was looking for this deeper connection and a deeper meaning. And so everybody feels kind of lost at times in their life. And he talks about being very confused at times. And so address the need for belonging and know that you will find your place with others of like mind and spirit. It's okay to let go of the pressure to fit in. Not everyone will understand you. It's time to move on. So what a wonderful message that is. I'll benefit from. So the next one I am going to take is the secret language of light. And yes, 15 is coming up, which is sensitivity, right? We talked about his sensitivity, right? So let's see what we got here about heightened intuition and compassion. You are becoming more sensitive to the energy and vibrations that precede all physical creation. We can all sense these energies, but our rational minds often override our feelings. Sense beyond what you see with your eyes and hear in your mind. Trust your heart will bring together the most up-to-date information through your senses. When we are open to sensing and feeling love, it also means we are open to sensing and feeling fear. This clarifies the importance of actively choosing where you place your gaze and focus your energy. Don't let old stories determine what you will think and feel. There is no hiding behind words. Feeling sorry for yourself or another or a situation doesn't help them or you. And so we want to talk about, these warring places, feeling sorry or pitying, it's a lower energy. And so that's where compassion, it's not taking yourself to that place, because when you are in it with them, you can't have anything to offer them. So you came here to create reality, not to accept it. You attract what you are, not what you think or what you say, but what you feel. So this is talking about how important our emotions are. So he really wants you to understand that. Celebrate your sensitivity. Without it, you may not realize you have a choice. What do you want to bring into your life? And he also wants to bring up about taking some time to be alone and working on your inner self is quite all right. He had 4s in his charts, and those can be a little bit about self-isolation. And if done in the right context where you aren't avoiding society or avoiding things, it can really be beneficial to gain that clarity, to gain that insight. So he just wanted me to. Okay, so I have the Spirit Animal Oracle. Let's see what comes up here. Oh, I think I got this in the last. 2 come out. Okay. So again, we have the Lion Spirit energy that came up in Winston Churchill's. Being generous of spirit. And then here's a 4 that was in his chart. The Mouse Spirit, tending to the small things. So it's the small things, that create the space for other things to come in. So he wants you to know about that, even though the mouse is small, that its creativity is not small, and he says, the small things are important, details are important. So these are great cards here. Oh, and we got to go to the line to the here we got another 4 coming through. So we've got the Magic card came through. 31 adds up to a 4. The frequency of magic supports our intrinsic ability to grow and expand beyond this moment, to move toward possibilities and expressions that are as grand and profound as we can imagine. All that is required is our belief in their manifestation. He had many things created that he would have never thought, that most people would never think possible. And I do love too that this card is also bringing forward a lot of that purple energy. Really, really beautiful. So we are going to the wisdom of the hidden realms. The Hungry Ghost, number 14, which adds up to a 5. Obsessions, scarcity, consciousness, and attachment. So him having, again, this adds up to that 5, which can be, again, you got to watch that ego can get away from you, negativity. And the attachment was tied to his 8th, making sure that you're not overly involved in other people's problems. Letting go of things is very important. And so obsessions and hungry ghosts, he wants to talk about those psychic clearings, and him being attacked by a schizophrenic person. So we're going to go to the Work Your Light. Okay, so he definitely wants you to know the ever unfolding rose. Comes back to his gardening here. Cracked open. It's not happening for you. It's happening for you, not to you. So it's one thing to remember that there's a lesson in it for you. And it's about this ascension. As you can see, the gate at the top of the hill, and just all the water represents that emotion. It's very, very beautiful card as well. And so we are going to go from talking to heaven and getting a message from him before we pull the last mantra card. And I love this. So he says to us, I am just a thought away. So again, we all have the ability to connect to whoever we want on the other side, asking for them, their energy to come in and in meditation and getting their messages. It's just remembering to clear your energy, ground yourself, making sure that that the messages you're getting are really from them, asking for validation. Like we got the Krishna card and some things that came through that really would tell me that these are messages that George would definitely be involved in. So that's what's really, really important here. So we're going to go to the final mantra, Natcon, the healing mantra deck, because rewriting the subconscious is all about us affirming. So this is all about acknowledging apprehension and what that means for us. Okay, so the mantra is, when it's a yes, nothing can stop me. When I'm unsure, it's always a no. So learning that discernment, learning how to trust yourself and trust those emotions. So acknowledging apprehension. I'm doing that better in my life as well, learning to stop when I feel that resistance, when I'm going to do something that I'm not quite sure of. So when apprehension is acknowledged, you become aware of a constant back and forth between polarities. And George had that in that 20-2 in his chart, that inner conflict, and the 8s, which is the duality, the light and the dark, the right and the wrong. 8s are all about the duality. And so as this back and forth movement occurs, it can feel nearly impossible to make decisive, empowering choices. As you acknowledge any apprehension, recognize that either it is your heart trying to warn you of an old choice or pattern you're about to repeat, or it is a sense of unworthiness that makes you unsure about how to step onto the biggest stage you dream of commanding. The power of discernment bubbles closer to the surface the more often your apprehensions are acknowledged, and it is needed to determine which of these two options is true. So this mantra is ideal for resolving indecisiveness, balancing impulsive behaviors, and trusting your instincts. So we're going to say this 3 times. When it's a yes, nothing can stop me. When I'm unsure, it's always a no. When it's a yes, nothing can stop me. When I'm unsure, it's always a no. When it's a yes, nothing can stop me. When I'm unsure, it's always a no. Okay. And let me feel if there's anything George is wanting to say. And he's just saying that everything's going to be fine. It's all going to work out. And it's okay to feel good even when bad things are happening in the world. And he wants to thank everyone who supports his music. And he's sending his great love to all of us. So with that, I will end the video. Please like, share, and subscribe so that I can, so I'm trying to grow the channel and get the word out to other people who might be interested in listening to some of the celebrities that have crossed over and the messages that they want to bring forth to everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and I really appreciate your time, and I will see you in the next video. Much love to you all.